Well, good afternoon. This is Betty Meredith, President of the Retirement Resource Center, a retirement education and training company for professionals, clients, and consumers. And I'm happy to be your host today for Meeting the Solo Aging Challenge with Sara, Zeff, Geber, PhD, Certified Retirement Coach, is our presenter. Throughout the world, when elders reach a certain stage, they need a little help. And it's almost always the adult children that provide or procure that assistance. However, almost 20% of baby boomers did not have children, which is double the rate of all previous generations. Many more live thousands of miles from their adult children or are estranged, and that leaves millions of solo agers to figure out the best plan for themselves without the help of kids. This webinar is designed to give solo agers and those who are concerned about solo aging for friends and siblings a realistic and concrete list of steps to take to make sure they are supported and looked after in their later years. Dr. Sara Zeff Geber is a nationally known expert in the non-financial side of retirement planning and is the unrivaled thought leader in solo aging. She coined the terms solo ager and solo aging with her book, her media experiences, her workshops, her talks, and those phrases have become the industry standard. Sara shares her knowledge and wisdom about successful solo aging in an engaging and lighthearted fashion with all her audiences. She founded her company Life Encore in 2011 to educate and coach boomers in how to reinvent retirement. Her book, Essential Retirement Planning for Solo Agers, was released in April of 2018 and has been an Amazon bestseller. And it was also made into an Audible book as well. And it was named by the Wall Street Journal as one of 2018's best books on aging well. So Sara was named an influencer in aging by PBS's nextavenue.com, and in 2020, she was invited to be a fellow with Nexus Insights, which is a think tank and incubator for new concepts in senior living and the future of aging. She is also a regular contributor to Forbes and has been quoted in the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, USA Today, the Huffington Post, and many more. So Sara, I'm looking so forward to this presentation today. Thanks for being here with us, and we'll now turn it over to you.
Thank you, Betty. Thanks for a very, very warm welcome. You know, one thing Betty didn't tell you about me is that I live in California, land of good wine, and it was here in the Silicon Valley area. I don't live in Silicon Valley anymore, but I did 10 years ago. And I was meeting a friend at one of those cute little wine bars in Palo Alto. And she started to talk about all the things that she had been doing over the last year plus for her mother, who was then about 87. She had been flying back and forth probably 6 times in 1 year to the East Coast where her mother was, because she had to get her mother situated in a retirement community. Her mother at that point was kind of beyond the point of doing that search herself. So Sandy and her brother set to work on finding the right community for her, also selling her car, also changing all of her addresses, introducing her to the new people at the community that they found, and then finally they had to sell her home. So all of those things added up to over a year's worth of work. And I looked at Sandy when she was done telling me about it, and I said, Sandy, you know, you and I don't have children. Who's going to do all that for us? And of course, there was no answer. There is no good answer to that. So that question became kind of the guiding force in my life for the next 10 years. It all started with that little wine bar. But the question of who's going to do that for us really became my guidepost from that point forward. So here's where we're going in today's webinar. I want to help you discover ways to develop a solid support system, because that's what solo agers need. We're also going to take a look at some of the key sources of happiness in later life. That's pretty standard for everybody, but solo agers certainly get their fair share of that. And I also want to introduce you to ways that a social that the Solo Agers social network is different from that of a parent, because it is, and that's where some of our challenge comes from. And we're going to look at ways that adult children support their aging parents, because that's a good way to take a look at what we need to do for ourselves. And finally, we'll take a look at why it's so important to avoid isolation, and that ties in critically with where you're going to live in later life. So as you can imagine, after I asked that who was going to do that for us question, I had some work to do. I really needed to research what was going on and whether my friend Sandy and I were the only two people in the world that had this problem, or whether there were actually a lot of other people out there. And here's what I found. The statistics of women having children hadn't changed for several millennia. As long as they've been tracking that, the rate of childlessness in the U.S. population has hovered around 10% until the baby boomers came along. And you'll notice this research is done quite a while ago. It was done actually in 2010. But that was right about the time that the youngest baby boomer women were just wrapping up their childbearing years. So it was a fair analysis at that point of what had been going on for the last 20. And lo and behold, the number came up, as Betty mentioned, almost twice what the childlessness had been in previous generations. The number is actually 19.4%. That's pretty darn close to 20%, and it still boggles my mind when I look around to think that 1 out of every 5 boomer women that I see did not give birth. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, that a number of women, of course, went on to adopt or marry into kind of ready-made families, but those were the statistics as they existed at the time. Then fast forward